Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily and I love to talk about books. And today we're going to talk about the 25 books that are on the top of my priority list for 2025. I'm going to start out by talking about my 5 most anticipated new releases, and then the rest of the books are going to be books that are on my physical TBR and book club books. Starting out with new releases in the order of release with Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. This book was released in February of 2025, so it is currently out. I had it in my hands at one point and I didn't buy it because I wasn't ready that day to start it, and that is going to be how I keep books off of my physical TBR. But the first 2 books in the Emily Wilde series were the most whimsical, wordy, delightful books with the most lovable, complex characters and the sweetest little romance. These were fairy tales and basically everything that I want in a book except for plot. The next release that I am the most excited for is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This book, if you haven't already heard about it, comes out on March 18th, 2025. I do think that this should be a national holiday because Suzanne Collins is that girl. Her books meant so much to me as a kid, definitely withstood the test of time. If you have been living under a rock and have not read The Hunger Games, you need to add those to the top of your list. No matter what age you are, you can read each of the Hunger Games books in a day. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was incredible. The new book covers Haymitch's games. This book is said to focus on control and the human cost of maintaining it. I just think that it is going to hit incredibly hard given recent events. The third book on my new release radar is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid truly can do no wrong with her more recent releases. Her backlist has some books on it that I was not the biggest fan of, but everything in her Daisy Jones and the Six, Evelyn Hugo, Malibu Rising universe has been amazing. She's releasing Atmosphere in June of this year, and this book is set in space. It looks to be like another Taylor Jenkins Reid relationship-centered book. Honestly, I don't really need to know that much about it. I will say that I've not always been a fan of every book that I've read that is set in space, but knowing Taylor Jenkins Reid, I'm going to absolutely devour Atmosphere. The next book that I am second most excited for this year is Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. I recently read The Poppy War and think that R.F. Kuang is just an exceptionally brilliant author. Katabasis is said to be nonsense literature, Piranesi meets Dante's Inferno. I've not read Inferno, but all of the other books that I saw on a list of books to read to prepare for Katabasis, I have read, and they are all incredible 5-star books. So I found this list from Jenny on Instagram where she said to read Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, Inferno by Dante, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, and The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath to prepare for Katabasis. And I'm like, what is going to be in this book? I am ready for it, I think. This book is said to be a Lewis Carroll-esque romp through a nonsense world playing with logic puzzles and paradoxes and math. And when I read that description, I felt like a dog hearing all of its favorite words like walk and treat. It just seems so incredibly up my alley by an author that I know is like the author of our generation. I would really love y'all's help deciding if I should read Inferno because that book scares me. Number 5 on the list is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is not a new release, but it is new in paperback, and my thing with Emily Henry is that I will read her books when they come out in paperback because while Book Lovers was stunning, gorgeous, beautiful, her other books I like, but haven't always been obsessed with. So new Emily Henry paperback, I know it's going to be solid. I think it's coming out in paper. Don't actually quote me that it's coming out in paperback, but I'm assuming that come summer there will be Funny Story hitting the shelves in paperback. I will buy it and I will read it in 2 days while sitting by the pool, and I will love every minute of it. Okay, moving on from new releases, because I think that those are all the ones that I had on my list, to books that have been sitting on my shelf, some of them for multiple years, that I am finally getting around to this year. The first book that I have had on my shelf for not too long, but it's something that I've always wanted to read, and just something that frankly is a little bit intimidating, is the Iliad. This is Emily Wilson's translation, and Emily Wilson is the first woman to translate the Iliad and the Odyssey into English, so this book is said to be more accessible and more feminist. I thought this is my sign to finally read the Iliad now that Emily Wilson's translation is out. It's in paperback. My bookstore had one copy left of it and I picked it up. Then I put it back down. I'm on page 70 and I haven't read this in weeks. This is a thick book. I'm trying. I love Greek mythology retelling so much, and I need to read the source text. I need to read the Bible of Greek mythology. It is time. It is something that I want to do before the new movie comes out, and it just has to happen. Okay, next on my list is something that's been sitting on my shelf for quite a while, and it is World of Wonders by Amy Nezuko. This book has a 4.05 rating on Goodreads and is said to be part essay collection, part memoir, a love letter to the natural world and family. Next is Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. It has a 4.2 on Goodreads and is said to be very queer-coded fantasy horror, obviously vampires. It is considered a modern classic, and apparently the show is also incredible. I love when I get to read a horror book and then watch a horror show. I'm thinking about you, Haunting of Hill House. My mom actually recommended this to me, so I'm really excited to read a recommendation from my mom. Thank you. Next, we have 1984 by George Orwell. I don't think I need to say a ton about this aside from apologizing that I have a booktube channel and consider myself an avid reader and haven't read it. This is my public apology for the fact that I've never read 1984. There's just too many references in politics and pop culture and everyday life to 1984 for me to not have read this. Next was a recommendation from my sister and every single person that watched my physical TBR TikTok and commented and gave me advice. Practically, this was one of the top recommended books that people were raving about. I made another video where I dove deep into a TikTok that I posted that went viral of my physical TBR where people gave me a ton of recommendations and I put everything into a spreadsheet. So if you want to watch that, I will put it up here or here. I don't know. It'll be there though, and I'll put it in the description. But a lot of folks said East of Eden by John Steinbeck was an absolute life-changing must-read. I like an absolute life-changing must-read. This also won a Nobel Peace Prize, no big deal, and has a 4.42 on Goodreads, which is an incredible rating. This is said to talk about identity, love, and murder, which is fitting because it is a retelling of the book of Genesis from the Bible, so on brand. It is a direct reference, the title at least, to Genesis chapter 4, verse 16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. That is this, the East of Eden. This is also another thick book, but I read Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, and the writing style was incredibly accessible. It was way easier of a read than I expected, so this is not super intimidating to me. I'm assuming it's going to be a similar style of writing and won't be too hard to get through. The next book is a book that I bought when I visited my sister in New York City, thinking I'm going to read this as soon as I buy it, and then of course it's set on my shelf, which is why I'm not buying new books anymore unless I'm starting them that day. Juniper and Thorn by Reid. This book is kind of trigger warning heavy, so if it's something that you're interested in, I would definitely look up trigger warnings. This has a 3.64 on Goodreads, so still a decent rating, and it's said to be perfect for fans of Shirley Jackson, which is me. Next, I would like to read something by Adrienne Young. I have two of her books. I have Spells for Forgetting and The Unmaking of June Pharaoh, both on my shelf, both given to me / lent to me, I'm so sorry, by friends. So it's time to read one of these. I'm kind of leaning towards The Unmaking of June Pharaoh, but if you think differently, please let me know in the comments, because Spells is a paperback and that is something that is weighing in its favor. They're said to be genre-defying fantasy, mystery, romance books, and that's my favorite type of book. Anything genre-defying, I always just eat up because I love when it has a little bit of everything in it, you know? Next, I'm finally going to finish A Swiftly Tilting Planet by Madeleine L'Engle. I've read the first two books in the Wrinkle in Time Quintet multiple times, and each time I read the first two, I go on to the third and then I DNF it. I think I've DNF'd this book 2 or 3 times, but I'm stubborn. I'm not going to reread 1 and 2 in this series. I'm just going to read it by itself. I think that might help. What you typically see on Goodreads in a series is higher ratings for the second, the third book in a series, because the people that continue on are people that liked the first book of the series. The fact that book 2 and 3 have around the same ratings as book 1, to me doesn't seem like a good sign of a strong series, but I love A Wrinkle in Time. It's like one of my absolute all-time favorite books ever that I recommend to everyone. Like, I read it growing up, I loved it. Read it as an adult, I loved it. So I do want to finish at least the 3rd book, maybe the series, but I have the 3rd book, so it just has to happen. Next, we have Outlawed by Anna North. This is a queer Western book. 2 things that I think should go together more. This has a 3.5 on Goodreads, and a lot of people, when I posted my TikTok, were recommending this. A few handful of people were saying it was overrated. I have to find out for myself, and it's decently short. Queer books are just moving up my list of priority in general because they are more frequently banned books and important to read and understand and advocate for. This just seems so up my alley. Gorgeous, stunning cover. And it says that it features an irresistibly no-nonsense, courageous, and determined heroine, that it dusts off the myth of the Old West and reignites the glimmering promise of the frontier with an entirely new set of feminist stakes. Love to see it. Anna North has crafted a pulse-racing, page-turning saga about the search for hope in the wake of death and for truth in a climate of small-mindedness and fear. That's what we need. That's what we need now. Oh my gosh, I have 4 minutes left on my memory card. That is not gonna cut it. Okay. Next we have The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I know that this is wildly different from The Secret History, but I love The Secret History so much. My brother got me this for Christmas. It has a 3.96 on Goodreads and a Pulitzer Prize. It's about a kid that survives an accident and he is orphaned basically, and he has this painting or piece of art, sculpture, something. It's just the type of book to like take on a plane or to really sit with. So I think I'm gonna start this one soon. It's really calling to me. Next, I'm not fully convinced on this book, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. My TikTok TBR video, people were like, do not read this, it is not good. I will either read it this year or sell it to Half Price Books. It has a cool concept. I'm just not 100% sold on it based on what people were saying about it. Next, we have The Devil in the Dark Water, which a friend lent me so long ago and I still have it. And like, I definitely am going to get bad karma for keeping it for so long. This is a historical fiction mystery thriller with a 3.84 on Goodreads, and it takes place on a ship. It has like maybe a demon, like maybe it's ghosts, and the vibes are like lost at sea. And I love like gothic. Well, I don't know if it's gothic, but I loved, what is that freaking book that I read? It was a book about, I will put a screenshot of it because the name of it is slipping my mind, but it was a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and it was gothic and just very like atmospheric and dark, and I feel like this is going to remind me a little bit of that. So I'm excited to dive into this and then finally return it to my friend so that I can settle karma down a little bit. Next, I have Shady Hollow. This is another murder mystery, and it's all animals, and I think that that's like pretty much all I need to say about it. Apparently, it's Watership Down meets Mickey Spillane, a mystery of rare and sinister charm. Watership Down scarred me for life as a kid, so I'm ready to get back into it. Maybe I'm not ready. We'll see. I guess I'll let you guys know. The final book that I have on my physical TBR that I have put on my top 25 of 2025 is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. My good friend got me this for my birthday last year, and I have not yet gotten to it, but I think that this is Agatha Christie's like most popular book. Potentially, it's the one that I've heard the most about, at least. I've read 2 other Agatha Christie books and I liked them. I'm excited to read another one. We'll probably read this like on a rainy day or maybe in October because the vibes are just like mystery, you know, vibes. The next 6 books on my list are ones that I don't own, not new releases, just books that I've been wanting to get to. Number 20 is Parable of the Sower, the second book in the Earthseed trilogy. I read Parable of the Sower with my Discord book club about a month and a half ago, and there were some loose ends I kind of felt. There were some unanswered questions that I had, mostly regarding the religion in the book and kind of the development of it. It's an insane book because of how much has come true that Octavia Butler predicted, and I will never ever say that she is not like a freaking prophet. Reading it in this year was truly insane. If you have read both of these books, please let me know if the second one is worth diving into. Next is Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. I started this as an audiobook, and I've just been listening to a couple other nonfiction audiobooks / reading other nonfictions, so I've kind of put it to the side, but this is a collection of essays, interviews, and speeches centering feminism, racism, the prison industrial complex. Next on my list would be a reread, and I think that I want to reread The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. This is a book that I read a few years ago, and I told myself that I would revisit every few years. My other option was to revisit The Power of Now. I think that books like this are very meditative and great to revisit because it's almost just affirmations as you're reading it or listening to it. I read the physical copy of The Untethered Soul when I first read it, but I think it would make a great audiobook. I listened to The Power of Now as an audiobook and really loved it. It just felt very like a yoga teacher was talking to me. And I've definitely been on my yoga journey the past year and a half, I would say, like getting really into it. And I really like supplementing the physical practice with the spiritual, psychological aspects of it. Next, I would really like to read something by Stephen King. The only thing that I've ever read by Stephen King is the novella In the Tall Grass. I loved both the movie and the novella. I just haven't ever read anything else by Stephen King. I know that I will like his work. I just feel like I have decision paralysis because he has so many great books. So if you have a Stephen King recommendation, I've probably asked for them before. And if you've already given me one, I'm so sorry. I'll take it eventually. Give it to me again. Convince me. Really sell me. I did really want to read it, but I had it in paperback and I was reading page 1 and looking at how freaking long the book was, and I was like, I physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually cannot do this. My last 2 books are both going to be books that I'm reading for my book club that I'm in person. We're currently reading The Glass Castle and I love it. It is so compelling, such a gorgeous story, really reminding me of Educated. It started off exciting and interesting from the beginning, and it's a book that I don't want to put down, and I feel like that doesn't always happen to me with memoirs. Even if I'm really enjoying it, sometimes it feels like I'm kind of like, okay, time to listen to my memoir now. This one, I'm like, put that on. I don't want to listen to music. I want to know what happened to this girl, these kids. And then finally, our next book club pick is going to be something from the New Yorker's Best Books of 2024 list. My pick is On the Calculation of Volume. This is a book by a Danish author, and it was translated into English recently. It's 160 pages, so a shorter book. A review said that it is a meditative literary version of Groundhog Day, and I haven't really read a ton of books that have the Groundhog Day trope. This one sounds like a good one, and the cover is stunning, so I want it on my bookshelf. That is my 25 books for 2025 list. I would love to know what y'all are reading. Let me know in the comments per usual. I'm feeling so motivated now more than ever to be reading, and I'm really like holding on to that feeling. I think that it's just one of those things that like when you feel super motivated to do your hobby, you have to really take advantage of it. Motivation comes and goes, so you gotta like just be so appreciative when it comes. What am I talking about? I have spiraled. I was trying to close the video out and I'm getting like weird. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have such a lovely day. I will talk to y'all so soon. Bye.